Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give everyone just a minute to join, and then we'll start shortly. Okay, great. Looks like we're getting people joining. Well, welcome, everybody. We're so glad you could join us today for our 1-hour webinar, Simplify Your 2024 Year-End Tax Processing, Automate, and Save Time. I'm Haley. I'm part of the marketing team here at MHC, and I'll be facilitating our discussion today. Our speaker is Kyle Hartung, who I'll introduce shortly. But first, I'd like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded, and you will all receive a follow-up email with the link to the recording on our website after the webinar. All participants have been muted to prevent background noise, so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A section, and we will get to them at the end. There will be a post-webinar survey that will appear when the webinar ends. Please use the survey to let us know how we're doing and to request any additional information so that an MHC resource can follow up with you. And we really appreciate your feedback on these webinars. Our speaker for today is Kyle Hartung, Senior Account Executive at MHC. Kyle has 20+ years of experience helping businesses achieve their procure-to-pay and payroll goals, and he has dedicated his career to helping businesses with digital transformation. So with that intro, let's hear from Kyle about 2024 year-end tax processing.
Thank you, Haley. Appreciate the introduction. Thanks everybody for joining us here today. See a lot of familiar names in the audience, so appreciate you guys joining. I'm going to shut my video off here just to focus on the content for today, but look forward to taking you guys through the presentation here today. Quick intro about MHC before you guys before we get into the actual content for today. As Haley mentioned, please use the Q&A section in the Zoom toolbar for any questions. We'll review those at the end. Hopefully we'll cover most of your questions here today throughout the webinar, but there may be some items that we need to address, so use that. And just as far as MHC goes, for those of you that are not familiar, for over 20 years, we've been digitizing and automating documents. And we have over 1,300 customers, over 100 system integrations, and 70% of our customers have used our solutions for over 5 years. So a lot of long-term and loyal customers. I know many of you would fall into that category as well. Our product offerings fall into these 3 different categories in the middle of the screen here. MHC North Star is our next-gen cloud platform, which I'll talk more about on the next slide. MHC Classic is our Document Express, Document Self-Service, and Image Express solutions that I know a lot of you are running, which can either be run on-premise or hosted. And then MHC Engage CX is our any-prem customer communication management platform. CCM is the acronym for that, Customer Communication Management Platform, that's used for document assembly, distribution, really through any channel. There's actually a webinar tomorrow at the same exact time as this one for our CCM platform. If you're interested in that, let us know. We can make sure you get the invite for that webinar. Our solutions really handle a wide array of use cases, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, from AP invoice automation, AP payment automation. We deal with supply chain documents, purchase orders, automating the distribution of those documents, and then on the HR payroll side with the employee document self-service and distribution. And then we've got an outsourced tax processing service as well, which we'll get into here today. So again, appreciate you guys all taking the time to join us, and we will get into the specific content for tax document processing here in just a second. The last thing I wanted to cover before that is, although this session is for MHC customers using Document Express, Document Self-Service, and our processing services, in case you aren't aware, MHC has a cloud platform called MHC North Star. Like many technology companies, we're becoming a cloud organization, and MHC North Star is our next gen cloud platform that will eventually replace our classic products. And as you can see on the screen here, it offers a functionality from procure to pay, including AP invoice automation, HR payroll, and tax document processing, all via a cloud platform that's accessible from anywhere. On the bottom of the screen, it goes through some of the different inclusions, with SOC 2 Type 2, HIPAA certified, some different, integrations that are provided out of the box, and, essentially document and image management is all part of the platform. But if you are interested in learning more about that, please let us know. It's really, allows you to get away from the on-premise software and having to manage and maintain that and the servers and the databases and everything that comes along with it. And a lot of you for the year-end tax processing will be needing to download the year-end updates and deal with getting those applied and tested. And, MHC would handle all of that for you, in the cloud essentially. So that's the last I'm going to mention on that. If you are an MHC North Star customer and planning to use our system for taxes this year, you should already be engaged with a project team from MHC. If you're not, let us know, and we'll make sure we get that taken care of. All right. So for today, we're going to get into the following topics, and we're going to cover some general updates for 2024. There's really 4 categories that the majority of our customers fall into, and we're going to talk through those 4 different categories. Most of you would fall into one of those 4 categories, and to help you prepare for year-end tax processing coming up. And then we'll talk about some of the different timelines, and then some frequently asked questions, as well as if you have questions as we go, type them into the Q&A, and we'll answer those at the end as well. All right, so some general updates for 2024. If kind of starting on the left-hand side here, so for those of you that are familiar with the electronic delivery options, the IRS does require that employees provide consent, and that's still a requirement. So if you are planning to electronically deliver W-2s, 1095-Cs this upcoming tax season, hopefully you're promoting the program, getting employees to sign up. Our solution does provide the tools that you need to stay IRS compliant and to promote the program, get the employees to sign up. The more employees that sign up, the fewer that you have to print at year end. And then there's a few other requirements, like important tax document available needs to be part of the email subject when the document is available. Again, our software provides the functionality needed to keep you compliant with those IRS requirements. But that, again, is still a requirement that the employees do need to opt in for that electronic delivery. Over on the right-hand side here with the timeline, so January 31st, so nothing new here as far as when those documents need to be distributed to the employees. W-2s, 1099s, the miscellaneous interest, dividend, NEC, and then IRS electronic or paper filing due for the W-2s and the 1099s. February 28th, IRS paper filing due for the 1095-Cs and the 1099 miscellaneous interest and the dividend, and then March 3rd for the 1095-Cs needing to be furnished to the employees. So this was extended from January 31st. I believe every year that since the Affordable Care Act started, that deadline has been in March. So similar to previous years where that's been extended out, so you can distribute those after your other year-end tax documents. As far as March 31st, so the IRS electronic filing due for the 1095-Cs and then electronic filing due for the 1099 miscellaneous dividend and interest. And so we'll talk through a little bit more as far as there's a change to the electronic filing requirements based on your volumes, which we'll cover at the end here as well. And then for any of you that may be in Canada, similar to previous years, the end of February is when those T4s, the Releve 1 forms need to be distributed to the employees and then filed with the CRA. Well, good. So, the 4 different options that we talked about, we're going to go through, and I imagine most of you fall into one of these 4 categories, but essentially the first one is going digital and hands-free. So it would be electronic delivery, as well as having an outsourced document printing and distribution service, which could be MHC or could be somebody else. The next option here would be going digital and printing locally, so handling the electronic delivery internally, just like option 1, but also printing those documents internally for the employees that have not opted in for the electronic delivery. You'll notice the digital first, the saves the most time. So the upper left is going to, save you the most time and be the most digital option. And then, as we go here, going hands-on, for example, is completely paper-based. You're printing everything and you're mailing it out or distributing it internally. Oh, I'm sorry. Going hands-free would be MHC providing the printing and the distribution for you. Option 4 would be going hands-on, which would be the internal printing and distribution. So taking the most time and the most paper-based. So we'll go through each one of these and kind of talk about the different things you should be thinking about. Hopefully you all fall into one of these categories and can kind of think about what you need to be preparing for now, and we'll kind of help you along that as well. Before we get into that, we always like to just try to make this interactive and see what people are planning to do for this tax season. So, I've done this webinar quite a few years in a row, and it seems like the electronic delivery option it's growing and growing every year. So interested to see what everyone's planning to do, outsourcing all your tax document printing and distribution, printing all your documents in-house, going with the digital distribution, and then printing in-house, or pushing for the digital distribution and outsourcing the printing, or if you're not sure. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a second and responding to the poll here, we'll share the results. And I imagine option 3 and 4 will be getting higher and higher every year is what we'll be seeing. So we'll see what that looks like here for those in attendance today. How are we looking, Haley, on responding?
We have 70% participated.
Okay. Maybe give another 10 seconds here and then we'll share the results and see what that looks like. All right. Are you able to share the results, Haley? All right.
Yeah.
So printing all tax documents in-house, still a pretty high percentage of that, which is interesting. And then electronic delivery with the printing in-house. Okay. Yeah. So I guess over 50% of the respondents would fall into the digital delivery, which is great. Obviously the digital delivery allows you to avoid having to print the costs associated with printing and distributing. So appreciate you all responding to that. All right, so if we go through option 1 here, which would be going digital and hands-free. So this would really be around, you're using the self-service solution to electronically deliver documents to the employees opted in, and then you're outsourcing the printing of the documents for those remaining employees or maybe for your inactive employees. So, essentially we have the online self-service portal, which you can either be running on premise or as a hosted solution through MHC. So some of you may fall into that category. And then we have the printing and distribution of the documents through our secure tax processing center that MHC offers. So the idea here is you're having employees opt in for the electronic delivery, ideally getting the majority of the employees to opt in, although that can be somewhat challenging sometimes. And then you're just printing the ones that are remaining and potentially the inactive employees. However, we'll talk about a potential alternative for the inactive employees as well. So this really increases your employee engagement as far as, the self-service delivery. It gives them access to their documents from mobile devices, from their computer, so that they can access it at any time. It's also huge for reprinting purposes, as people are needing their last 3 W-2s or whatever it may be, pay stubs, for example, they can access them on their own. Don't have to bother your payroll department for those reprints. And then, for your staff, obviously, then you're not having to print, fold, distribute as well, getting rid of the costs involved with the paper and the postage, and certainly environmentally friendly as well, not having to print those documents. So what do we need to think about here, and how does it work? Essentially, hopefully you're encouraging employees to opt in to that electronic delivery. We've had people do some creative things. Some customers do some creative things to encourage that participation, as far as putting, if you opt in by a certain date, you're going to be in a drawing for a certain prize, and just, anything you can do to promote the program to get employees to opt in is going to be to your advantage. So you don't have to print those documents. Essentially there's an authentication that's provided there's a single sign-on depending on the customer portal that you might have or the ERP that you're using. There's also an alternate authentication option that I'll talk about here in a minute as well, could be used for active employees that don't have access to the network, or inactive employees. And usually right away when people opt in, there's historical documents out there for them to view, their historical W-2s, pay stubs, 1095-Cs, depending what you're using the system for. Your administrators can manage the communication and the notifications to the employees. For reprints, you can redirect them to the website, handle it on their own, and takes that burden off the payroll team from having to do that. And it gives you a full audit trail of every user's activity. So you can see, if someone said, I didn't sign up for electronic delivery, you can go and see when they signed up, and see all of their activity that's happening behind the scenes. So that's the electronic delivery side of it. So if you're planning to use MHC's tax document processing service, or the outsourced print service, for the customers that are going with the digital route, you're going to want to, there's some reports you can run within the software that will tell you, how many employees have opted in, so that you have an idea for the employees that have not opted in, how many are going to need to be printed by MHC. But you're going to want to sign a statement of work, and that should be happening here now. If you haven't already, I'll provide some information here as far as a next step there, if you haven't already signed a statement of work and you're planning to use our tax document processing service. It's coming in January. December, January is when you would be sharing your data files, January through February. For the 1095-Cs, those would come later. The W-2s, we would be, in the early January timeframe typically. And then MHC will, preview the output. We're going to confirm totals. We're going to do some, some quality assurance before we process, and then, get your approval before we can send samples for you to spot check. And then when we get the green light to print, we will print and mail those out for you. And so that, depending on the document type, with W-2s, those are W-2s and 1099s, those are typically going to be in January, where the 1095-Cs would be in February. As far as what the users experience, so there's an end user interface on the left-hand side. End users are going to see their documents. They're going to be able to opt in, opt out. They're going to see historical documents depending on what you're using the platform to do. And then on the right-hand side would be the administrator view, where you can control, see what documents are out there, see what users are opted in, what users are not, target the employees that are not opted in, to try to get them to sign up for that electronic delivery. So as far as, one-stop access, both active and inactive employees can use the platform. There's an inactive employee alternate authentication that we offer. And I found that this has actually been very helpful for customers, even for active employees that, are working from home. They don't have access to the network, and they can use the MHC KBA, it's called, as an alternate authentication. So even your active employees can access their documents without being on the network. Also could be used for inactive employees as well, or terminated employees. And then outside of, the tax documents that you would consider for the system, W-2s, T4s for the Canadian organizations, and then the 1095-Cs, there's also other documents that are very common, custom pay stubs. A lot of ERPs do provide an electronic pay stub, but we can customize it specific to your organization. So it displays information the way that you want it or need it, based off of your organization's requirements or your state's requirements. Where typically the ERP's pay stub is very generic and the same for all organizations, whether you're in a certain industry, it's the same for all organizations typically. And then also, compensation statements, employee agreements, contracts, etc. So you can expand out the use of the system for other use cases, as you can see. And then again, I already talked a little bit about this, but your administrators will be able to control the delivery of the documents, and see who has what type of access to the system. This is very helpful when you want to see, who hasn't opted in yet for electronic W-2s, and then you can target them for a campaign to try and get the most employees signed up as possible. A little bit of just a visual on some of the other document types, the total reward statements over on the right-hand side, customized pay stubs, and then the tax documents that a lot of you would be familiar with. All right, so if you fall into this category, what should you be doing to prepare? Obviously, you want to be aware of the IRS dates that we covered previously. Paying attention to your ERP year-end notifications. So those typically the ERP is going to provide the year-end updates in early December, and then MHC will provide our year-end updates in the middle of December. We have to wait till after the ERP in case they make any last-minute changes that we need to accommodate. As I mentioned before, make it fun. Try to come up with some type of a creative way to get the most employees to sign up so that you're saving your organization money by not having to print those documents. Again, our year-end updates, if you're set up as a tax contact for MHC, you'll be getting an email when the year-end updates are available. And if you ever need assistance, you can always call our support line or email our support, as you can see on the screen here. We do have a Intuit TurboTax add-on, or not, well, it is an add-on technically, but it's a extension or an optional component that some of our customers have. Watch for communications there if you're using that solution. And really what that's about is for employees using TurboTax, they can opt in to have the system have their information sent to TurboTax at year end. So then when they go to do their return, it'll automatically import their data for them so they don't have to key it in. And then, contact our processing team if you're interested in that process or interested in using that service. David Bolt is in charge of that service on our tax processing team, and he can provide pricing, can provide SOWs that will want to get signed to make sure that you're signed up and ready to go for year end. All right, good. So that was option one. Option two, very similar to option one, but the biggest difference is going to be with option two, you're printing those documents locally. So we're still electronically delivering the documents to the employees, but the ones that need to be printed instead of MHC or someone else printing them for you, you would be printing them in-house. So there's a couple implications there, a couple impacts that we'll talk through. The self-service piece we really already talked about, so I'm not going to spend much time there. But we'll talk about the in-house printing and distribution. So same types of end user experience with the self-service, the resources requesting paper, receive a tax document. So that really the difference is going to be you're going to be printing and either mailing them to the employee's home or distributing them internally to the employees, which this calls out here. Let's see. So again, determining the number that need to be printed, because you're going to need to order forms and you're going to need to think about what form you want to print to. So our software is going to give you the ability to print to cut sheet, pressure seal. If you have pressure seal equipment, you're going to want to leverage that because that'll do the automatic sealing for you. So if you don't have pressure seal equipment, then you're typically going to go with the cut sheet form. We do have a forms provider or a couple of forms providers that I'll show here in just a second that you can order the forms from. You don't have to order the forms from those two forms providers, but we strongly recommend it to make sure that you're going to order the right forms. We can't guarantee you're going to get the right forms if you order it from somebody else. So we'll talk about that here on the next slide. Also knowing your customer portal login. So, the year-end updates are not available yet from MHC, but it's always a good idea to go out and log in, make sure you can get into the system. If you don't know your login, can't get in, you can get that handled with MHC support before the year-end updates are available so that you're ready to go in December. And then, as I mentioned, we generally release our updates in mid-December. Watch for communication from our team then. And then if you're using the MHC cloud, we handle that for you. So you don't need to worry about applying those year-end updates. Our cloud team does that for you. And then obviously installing the 2024 tax software. So every year there's going to be an update you need to download, apply. And this is where, depending on the machines that are running the software that need to be it needs to be installed on can be kind of a tedious exercise where, if you were in the cloud, we would handle that for you. So, another benefit of being in the cloud. So essentially you're running your file out of your ERP. Depending on the ERP, that's going to be, it's going to vary a bit, but the ERP is going to create a file. We're going to bring that into the Document Express software. And then, the electronic delivery piece will happen. And then the web delivery as well, based on the users that are opted in. But the ones that are not opted in will get printed to the printer. So one thing to call out, and I think this is something most people are aware of, is that our software will print the form and the data at the same time. So you're not, we don't recommend that you buy pre-printed forms. Buying blank forms, and then our software will print the form and the data at the same time. So you're not trying to hit boxes with data, which can be very tedious and difficult to do. So, and the forms providers that we're going to talk about are very aware of, and very aware of this, and it will recommend their right forms for you guys. Typically, it's based off of whether or not you have pressure seal equipment or not. All right, so how can you prepare now? Again, the IRS dates, be aware of those. You're going to apply the year-end updates from the ERP. You're going to get employees to sign up for the electronic delivery. We talked about the TurboTax. The main difference here is ordering your tax forms. Talk about that here in just a second. Again, you're going to want to log into the website, make sure you're ready to download, log into the customer portal, make sure you're ready to download the updates when available. And again, our support team is here to help you guys if needed. So as far as the ordering tax forms, same two providers as previous years. So I know a lot of you have used our software for a number of years. And so these two organizations should look familiar to you all. But you can reach out to Michelle with Brand Advantage Group or Nathan with Quality Resource Group. They can help you with pricing. They can help you with ordering. And again, you don't have to use these two providers, but we strongly recommend it just to eliminate the unknown of a vendor that we aren't familiar with that could provide the wrong forms for the software. All right, and as far as MHC support goes, so this is we rolled out a customer portal last year, so everyone should be familiar with the customer portal now. It was new right around this time last year, but essentially on the left-hand side here, you'll see MHC customer portal. It's community.mhcautomation.com. This is going to have your year-end resources. This is where you're going to download your year-end updates. If you aren't sure how to access it or can't log in, email our support team or call our support team, and they'll be able to help you out with that. Just another North Star caveat here. So if you are planning to use MHC North Star for your 2024 tax forms, you should be working with an MHC project team already. If you're not, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we get on the same page as far as that goes, because it'll be a completely different process. Okay, with that, we're going to stop here and ask another poll question. This will be the last one. Appreciate everyone taking the time to answer this. And, really, what was your biggest challenge that you faced last year with your year-end tax documents? Supporting inactive and terminated employees, getting documents processed and distributed on time, downloading and applying the year-end updates from MHC, issues with equipment like printers and sealers, all of the above or none of the above. And we'll let this run for about 15 to 20 seconds. And Haley, if you want to share the results after that, that would be great. From previous years, I think the results of this one are typically all across the board, depending on the organization. So we'll see about the group here today. How are things looking, Haley?
Good, we're at 70%.
Okay. I'm seeing some questions in the Q&A that I can just address while we're waiting here. Around an end of life for the classic applications. And, essentially there is not currently an end of life it depends on the organization. So we recommend that you work with your account executive to talk through. We're not at a point right now. Well, depending on the organization, we're going to recommend different things. Some of our customers, we're strongly recommending that you move to North Star depending on the applications that you're using from MHC, but there's no drop dead date right now that, we're no longer supporting Document Express or Image Express or Document Self-Service on this date. I'm sure that's going to be coming, but date has not been published today. For someone who's maybe facing an upgrade or needing to upgrade servers and those types of things, we're strongly recommending that you look at the cloud platform rather than upgrading the on-premise software, or if you're going through an ERP upgrade as well. All right, Haley, are you able to share the results? All right, so yep, kind of across the board here. Supporting inactive and terminated employees. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a minute as well. What an alternative option is for that. Getting documents processed and distributed on time. Downloading the year-end updates. Let us know if we can help you guys with that. Doing it once a year can always be a challenge because it's not something you're frequently doing. And we're here to help, so let us know. All right, good. So with that, we'll continue on here. And with option 3, going hands-free really is you're outsourcing the document creation and distribution, taking it off your list, not having to deal with it, washing your hands of it, and letting someone else do it for you. So again, a statement of work, if you're planning to use MHC to handle that for you, a statement of work would be required. So, work with David Bolt. Again, I'll share his contact information here again. If you have not already, we're going to want to get that executed here fairly soon. It's a pretty straightforward document that'll, document your intended documents and volumes that we're expecting to have to print and mail out for you, or whether we're mailing out or shipping them back to your office for you to distribute internally. Those types of details just need to be ironed out. So we're ready to go when the time comes. Again, same as earlier, providing the output files. We're going to preview the output. We're going to confirm totals, do our quality spot check, and then we're going to provide the services when needed. So benefits here would be, not having to invest in printers, sealers, folders, stuffing equipment. We would take that on for you, not having to purchase tax forms, not having to invest in software, essentially. And, essentially you're outsourcing everything to someone else to handle it for you. So the preparation checklist here, again, work with David Bolt. If you're interested in that option, he will handle the statement of work, make sure we're ready to go. He'll have some questions for you that he'll want to get answered around document types and volumes to get the statement of work put together, but he'll help you with that. Be aware of the IRS dates, of course, the year-end notifications for your ERP. And then there's a date we'll talk about here to avoid a rush charge. And then you can sit back and MHC will do the rest for you. So going hands-on would be the last option that we'll talk through. This is really for anyone who is planning to print everything internally and really not outsourcing, not handling any type of electronic delivery of the documents. So being aware of the IRS deadlines, you're going to need to apply your year-end updates for your ERP. If you're using the TurboTax integration piece, watch for a communication in early January there. You're going to need to order your tax forms. Again, we provided the contacts there for the tax forms. You're going to need to, make sure you can access the customer portal and be ready to download those year-end updates when the time comes. W-2s, 1095Cs, 1099s are very, common documents that our customers are using our software for, but there are a lot of other documents as well, as you can see on the right-hand side. So if you do have a specific document that you might be interested in using our software for, let us know. We can let you know if you're able to or not. And you can see there's quite the list here, and that's not even the complete list. We get asked about this quite a bit. It's really about reissued versus corrected tax documents. So if an employee loses his or her W-2 or the employee address is incorrect, a reissued W-2 will be sent to the employee. And then as far as corrected goes, if a correction is needed to be made to the tax document before the electronic file is transferred, the form is denoted as corrected. If the correction needs to be made after the electronic file is transferred, depending on the tax module, the form will need to be denoted as corrected and a special correction form may be used. So our software allows you to handle all of these scenarios. It's just a matter of, identifying what would be applicable based off the criteria. This is a new e-filing requirement change that hopefully most of you are aware of, but essentially, if you have more than 10 or more 1099s or W-2s, you will need to e-file this year. Previously, that threshold was 250. So the IRS has just dropped it down from 250 to 10. So one thing we always get asked about is the e-filing and if MHC can help with that. And we do not get involved in the e-filing. This has historically been handled by the ERP, where the ERP will create the file and then you can send it to the IRS. So we do not get involved in that side of things. We definitely get involved in the document production and distribution, but not the electronic filing. All right, so this next slide here has kind of everything we talked about on one timeline. So September 1st through November, we're getting the SOW signed if you're going to use our processing service. If you're planning to use any of our software that you don't already have licensed, getting those agreements signed now as well. And then purchasing your forms from the authorized tax form providers. The first 2 weeks of December is typically when those ERP updates come out, whether you're Infor, Oracle, whatever it may be, that's typically the case. Our updates, these dates we're usually a little bit ahead of this, but this is what we like to have people plan for. Same with the ERP, they can typically be a little bit ahead of that as well. But certainly by the middle of December, those year-end updates will be available from MHC. January 22nd is really the deadline for tax for anyone that's using our tax service to print and mail. We're going to need your production file by January 22nd. So we need 7 business days to avoid any type of rush fees. That would be for the W-2s. I guess for the 1095Cs, you would have 7 business days before March 3rd. And then January 31st, nothing new here, would be the deadlines for furnishing the W-2s, 1099s to the recipients. And then the IRS electronic or paper filing for W-2s and 1095, 1099 NECs. February 28th will be the Canadian forms and IRS paper filing due for the 1095Cs and the 1099s, and then the March 3rd deadline for the 1095Cs for the employees. And then the filing for the 1095Cs and electronic for a lot of dates and a lot of numbers here, but hopefully this slide's helpful based off of what you guys are using our software for. And again, this is being recorded. We'll provide you with access to it as well. Some frequently asked questions, and then I'll see if there are any other questions that have been asked in the chat. or in the Q&A section. One thing we get asked a lot is, do you have to purchase the tax forms if you're using our processing service? And the answer to that is no, we include that as part of that service. So we'll handle that for you. Let's see, when do you need the data files? And I covered this just a minute ago, but 7 business days prior to the IRS deadline. So if the deadline's the 31st, we need it by January 22nd. If the deadline is March 3rd, I would need to check where the weekends fall, but essentially 7 business days before that. Can we utilize MHC's document processing services for our terminated employees while still leveraging document self-service for our active and those on leave? Yes, and this gets back to, the inactive employee access component, and we do have a solution. If you're needing to print and mail out documents for inactive employees all the time and wanted to eliminate that, the MHC KBA piece does give you the ability to eliminate that. Essentially how it works is someone, calls for a reprint of their last, let's say, 5 pay stubs and 3 W-2s, whatever it may be. You send them to a URL. They go through a registration process where they have to answer some security questions, and then they're able to register, create a password that they'll use going forward, and then they can access those documents on their own. So your payroll department does not have to print and mail those out any longer. So how do we handle reprints if an employee asks for a reprint? And the answer to this is going to depend on what you're using MHC for. If you're using document self-service, the employees can access their own reprints. If you're doing the in-house printing, your administrators will be able to reprint a tax document. If you're using our outsourced printing service, then one option is we can provide a flash drive with PDF copies if you want to have those for administrators to reprint. And then we've already covered this, I think, enough times, but essentially the inactive employees can handle their own reprints. As far as frequently asked questions, this is just some different helpful information. I think everyone's familiar with the IRS website, but these provide some links, and then for Canada as well. Okay, that was essentially the content we had prepared for today. Let me check and see if there are any other questions. Again, feel free to continue asking questions. We've got, sorry, I missed this. When are the changes typically ready to be downloaded? So the second week of December, the middle of December is when our year-end updates are going to be available. And for anyone that's using our cloud, those would get applied for you via our cloud team. So if you're using our cloud, if you're hosted by MHC, then we apply those for you. If you're running our software on premise, then you would be applying those updates yourself. But again, it's typically the middle of December. All right, we've still got a couple minutes left here. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to type those in. Otherwise, I'll give it just a minute here. And if not, we can wrap up here for today. Let's see, I don't see any other questions coming in. We'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds here. Here is another question. So there's a question about uploading forms and a quick lesson. So I guess I'm not exactly sure what the question is referring to. So uploading forms, I'm wondering if that's referring to sending us your file for us to print and mail for you. If you wouldn't mind providing just some additional information, I'd appreciate it. Oh, no problems. Sarah, if there's anything we can provide, use the post-webinar survey, and we can follow up with you on that. All right, Haley, I don't see any other questions. Any closing comments from you?
Yeah, great, Kyle. Thank you for that presentation. That wraps up everything, and thank you everyone for attending. Like we said, you'll receive an email with the link to the recorded webinar after this, so you can revisit this content if you'd like. And don't forget to please fill out that post-webinar survey so we can continue to improve and provide valuable webinars. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.